We're joined by Liz Cheney, former State Department official, and of course, daughter of former Vice President Cheney, and Lawrence O'Donnell, former Senate Democratic Chief of Staff, live from Los Angeles. Thank you to you both for being here.
Thank you,
So
Chris.
let's get to the big question. Liz, I'll start with you. Why are we, as Americans, less safe right now because of President Obama's philosophy?
Well, I think it's in part because of his actions. I think taking the step of releasing the legal memos that laid out in great detail exactly what techniques we used in our enhanced interrogation program gave, as my dad said yesterday, the terrorists a new insert for their training manual. We know, former Director of National Intelligence Mike Hayden has explained, we know the terrorists trained to these techniques. So it's one thing to say we're not going to do them anymore, which as a policy, of course, is the president's right to do, but then to take the step and say we're releasing all of this information, I think very clearly makes us less safe. It takes a tool out of the toolbox for every former president.
Mr. O'Donnell,
president.
Is the president's instinct to play nice putting us at risk?
Well, the interesting thing about Liz and her dad's position is that a releasing of a memo has made the country less safe. And so the Cheney family suggestion is now to release more of it. So there, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that if we release classified information, it makes us less safe, and now let's release more of it. That's their position. And the funny thing is that Dick Cheney's argument and Liz's argument with the Obama administration is really an argument that began in the Bush administration when Dick Cheney started to lose the fights in-house. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in practices under the Obama administration. It was George W. Bush. It was George W. Bush who stopped waterboarding.
Well, Lawrence,
Liz, you know who stopped waterboarding. You know who banned it. It was the Bush White House that stopped it. That's who stopped it.
Lawrence,
and that's who said we're not.
Would you like to hear what I know? Because I'm happy to tell you what I do know. What I do know, actually, is that there's a big difference, as I'm sure you probably know, too. I don't know if when you were in the Senate you had access to classified information, but there's a big difference between information that really does, in fact, compromise sources and methods, which is the information that was in the legal memos that were released, which is why you had 4 former CIA directors and the current CIA director ask the president, please don't release this information. The point that my dad has made is now that that information's out there, now that we have said to the terrorists, here's how we are going to interrogate, here's how we used to interrogate, we won't be able to do it anymore. The American people.
All of it was known.
Lawrence, let me finish my
Hold on,
point.
Lawrence, hold on.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point.
Liz, you didn't let me finish, so we'll play it your way. Go ahead.
Let me finish my point. Thank you. All we're asking is that the American people themselves have the opportunity now to decide. The American people should be able to see, because this whole debate is about whether or not enhanced interrogation kept the country safer. There are documents that show the intelligence we gained from that program, and the American people ought to be able to judge for themselves. That's the main point. I think, it's fundamentally, disingenuous for the White House and its supporters to say, well, the president can't declassify these memos, or he can exercise his right to declassify some, but not others. I just think the American people deserve better than that.
Let's get past the vocabulary a little bit here, both of you also. Enhanced interrogation. Is that just another word for torture? And is that the game America should be in? That's something that seems to be danced around here in both speeches. Needs to be addressed. Let me start with you, Lawrence, because you were waiting on that one. Is this just another term for torture? Is that what you think is going on here?
It is torture. This government has prosecuted people in the past for doing exactly this. But Dick Cheney believes that it's not torture, and that is essential to his position. He can never acknowledge what waterboarding actually was as practiced by the Bush administration, because it was torture. Every definition of torture is included in that. And what's really silly about it is the Cheney notion that it was a very effective program, that waterboarding and these kind of torture methods were effective. If it was effective, why did they use it on only 3 people? If it was effective, why didn't they use it on the 500 people that Bush-Cheney administration released from Guantanamo, 75 of whom we now know have gone back into the terrorism business? That was a failure of the Bush-Cheney administration to keep America safe by processing people correctly at Guantanamo. It let go a minimum of 75 people who've gone back into the terrorism business.
All right, well, is that accurate?
Okay. No,
I mean, you hear what he's saying. Have you been releasing them back?
Your father said it yesterday. Liz, your father said yesterday that 14% of them went back into terrorism.
Let's get the response.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that, Lawrence. But now let me go through all of the inaccuracies in what you just said. First of all, the question of whether or not enhanced interrogation is torture has been answered, and it's been answered legally. And it's not that Cheney or President Bush or anybody else believed it to be torture. The Justice Department
Are you
of the United
afraid of
Lawrence,
calling it
I let you
waterboarding,
go.
Liz?
No,
Are you
waterboarding
afraid of
is
the
not
term
torture.
waterboarding?
Lawrence, are you going to let me answer here?
Great.
Waterboarding is not torture. It's a very and you ought to go. I would refer you to Attorney General Holder's
Why
testimony.
has this country prosecuted people for waterboarding?
Lawrence,
Why did we do that?
Because they did a number of other things in addition to waterboarding. But let me go through the points that you made. First of all, Attorney General Holder had a hard time explaining exactly what the legal definition is of waterboarding that would make it torture. We've done it to our own people. Secondly, your argument about why didn't we do it to 500 other people proves our point. It was used in 3 cases when we had terrorists who had information about potential attacks on the United States of America. So the notion that somehow, we should have waterboarded everybody, I'm surprised that that's a position you've taken this morning.
I'm not saying, I don't think we should have waterboarded anyone because it does not work, and there is zero evidence that it works.
Hold on,
absolutely zero
Liz, finish
evidence.
this
You need
point,
to
and
let
we
me
got to
finish
wrap
the
this.
point.
Go ahead.
There's zero evidence that we have seen. There is evidence that we haven't seen. The White House won't let us see. 14% of the people who were released from Guantanamo already have returned to the fight, and that's exactly
Released
why
by
it's,
the Bush-Cheney
and that's exactly
administration.
why it's so dangerous for the Obama administration to say it's going to close Guantanamo and bring those people to the United States.
All right, Liz, Lawrence, thank you very much. I'm cutting you both off so it's fair because we got to wrap this, but it's a very great discussion for us to be having.
Important.
The idea that we're having it at all raises security issues. Should we even be discussing this in public, having the president and former vice president?
It should be noted that Lawrence thinks we should have waterboarded 500 people at Guantanamo. I think that's
I did not say that, Liz. I asked why your father didn't waterboard more people to keep America safe.
I told you the answer to that.
If waterboarding keeps America
getting
safe,
me yelled at
why
now.
didn't they do it to more people?
Limited instances where we had to protect the
Liz, thank you very much. Lawrence O'Donnell, Liz Cheney, thank you very much to both of you.